back to What One Thing, a Smart Meetings podcast about the strategy that made all the difference in career and life from meetings industry icons we admire. And we have here Deborah Fine. She's a fabulous speaker and the author of the recently revised book, The Fine Art of Small Talk. This professed introvert began her career as an engineer and now presents to audiences all around the world to help people communicate, build business relationships, and practice the fine art of small talk. I consider you a friend, Deborah. You're a friend to Marin and the magazine, and we're so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks, JT. And Marin, you Smart Meetings. I just feel like the nurturing and hospitality that you express, you walk your talk. You're a huge resource for so many of us in the meetings industry, so many facets, but the warmth and the hospitality and the expertise is just overwhelming. What you have managed to do in the past few years is outstanding, and I recognize that.
Oh, you are so sweet, and we learn something every time we talk to you, so I'm really excited to get to our conversation. Deborah, you have an incredible story. What was the one thing, looking back, that made all the difference in your career and life?
I would say the one thing that made a difference in my career is learning to take a risk. And we all talk about taking risks, but taking a risk even these days can mean picking up the phone. I saw this tweet on Twitter just today. I follow the introvert something. I'm not promoting that in any way. And all I saw was an excuse. It was that, don't call me because I might be busy. Don't call me because da-da-da-da. And then just don't call me. Really? Don't call you on the phone? Because JT, I'm a big fan of the phone feature on our phone so that I can actually have a conversation with you. So the risk of calling to sell my product and service, the risk of putting myself out there to gain publicity, the risk of, and I was in the hotel industry when I came up with this idea, the risk of going to a decision maker and saying, what will it take to get your business? Meaning a room block. I was after room blocks from this particular organization for my property that I represented. What will it take to get your business? So I would say the best thing that we can all do is be willing to take a risk and know that failure is part of the game. And we just have to deal with it.
Well, Deborah, you can call me anytime.
But that's the difference, not everybody is like that. And it does take risk to walk into a room, whether it be Smart Meetings or any event, and say, meet new people so that you can gain visibility for your business. I think that takes a lot of guts and it takes a risk, and that's a very important ingredient to success.
And that's a great thing to say, but how did you learn to take a risk? If you weren't naturally the extrovert that goes into the room and reaches out and shakes everyone's hand, how did you learn to do that? What was that pivotal point, and what do you say to yourself before you pick up that phone?
Okay, well, first I need to correct you, and I hate to do that because you're such a wonderful host, but I am not an extrovert. I'm an introvert that behaves like an extrovert. So the best approach I have and that I suggest to anybody is, even if you are an extrovert, because extroverts like JT, energy surrounds them. People see the JTs of the world, they want to be in that aura, so they seek you out. So I say to extroverts and introverts and ambiverts alike, turn this into a task, meeting new people. Before you enter a room or an event or an occasion, tell yourself what the task is. I'll meet one new person. I'll meet 3 new people. You get to pick what the task is, but then you have to meet it. I've gone to Smart Meetings events where I was invited. It was wonderful. These parties the night before, they're absolutely the most over-the-top things you've ever attended. It's like going to the Super Bowl of parties, but I don't know anybody there. I mean, I know JT, but you can't become her crutch and just cling to her. I have to go meet new people. And to tell you the truth, JT, I don't love that. Don't love it, because everybody seems to know each other and they're all talking to each other. So I tell myself, you'll meet 3 new people and then you can go back to your hotel room and hide. You can hide. Or you can meet 2 new people and then you get to drink. I like to drink, but I don't drink until I've met my task. Or you can meet 3 new people and then go sit outside in the reception area for this event space and play with your little device, take a break, and go back in. So here's my point, is that even if you're an extrovert, look for people around the room that might not have someone to talk to and or somebody you haven't met before, because there's too much energy coming to you automatically that, no offense, you have not earned. And look after those people hanging by we call them wallflowers, but basically not everybody knows everybody. Everybody needs an introduction. Turn that into your task. And if we make this a task, networking, we will be far more successful at it.
And it sounds like what you're saying is you can win by helping other people. Look for other people, make introductions, be the connection.
I couldn't agree more. You said it so beautifully. And I put a label on it, JT. I call it assuming the burden of other people's comfort. That it is up to us. I don't care who is listening right now. I hold this accountability to myself. It is up to me to assume the burden of other people's comfort. So many of us are really nice people, kind, thoughtful, etc. But the only person's comfort we're concerned with during these interactions, whether they be an event and or just walking down the hall to meet with a client at a conference table, is our own. And so just like you, JT, I mean, whether you label it that way or not, you have such a gift for assuming the burden of other people's comfort. And I don't mean just in a business sense, like right now, how you welcome me onto the show and your smile and you're very vivacious. I mean, in general, you're always like that. Well, not some of us who are serious and not born with that gift, we have to remind ourselves, assume the burden. Don't think the world is looking at you. Look at other people. Take care of them.
Oh, you're so sweet. And tell me a story, Deborah. How did you learn this?
Well, for me, I was not born with the gift of gab, so I did a year's worth of research. Research didn't just mean books, because books are an easy thing for me. It meant observing people like yourself. What is she doing? What is she saying? How is she launching conversations? How does she keep it going? How is she exiting people with grace instead of gotta go in the middle of me saying something? So I researched not only through books, but through observation. Initially for my own resource, initially for my own benefit and self-improvement. It was very rewarding. I made friends, I made contacts, etc. And then I thought, I just thought it was dorky people like me that didn't know how to do this. I really did, JT. I thought all of you were just born with this. It was so easy for you to mingle, and it was just, I was sort of a lone wolf. And I came to realize that it's not just dorky, nerdy people like me, that lots of people, they're told to network, they're told to meet new people, but nobody tells us what to say. Like, what's a good icebreaker? How do I keep this conversation going? What kind of things should I avoid in conversation? It's funny just because you're interviewing me today, and here we had the Super Bowl just immediately previous. And, the first thing I thought of when I saw Rihanna was, is she pregnant? But I guarantee you that if I run into Rihanna, assuming that she'd actually interact with me, or I would not have said, oh, are you pregnant? Having been a woman, by the way, who was asked that question at least 5 months after she delivered her baby, I would never ask someone, are they pregnant? But I mean, that was the talk everywhere that you went. And it was okay because we weren't face to face with Rihanna. I know enough about Rihanna that I wouldn't have asked this, but I still wouldn't ask it, to say, so who's your husband? Who are you married to? What it was, maybe she's not married, or maybe that's none of my business. Maybe this was in vitro. I don't know. And it's none of my business. Let her tell me what I want to know. So, I researched all that, JT. I put it into my life. I gained so much, even girlfriends, but within the community, with other parents of my kids, and then with business, that I thought, you know what, you can offer this to other people who want it and need it. And so I did.
And all those tips are in your book?
Oh, that and more. I had this opportunity to do a newly revised second edition, partly so I would no longer be embarrassed when you read my book that you read about video stores rentals, because I think there's one that's left in existence. So that was a big clue. It was an old book. And I live in Denver, Colorado, and so there was reference to John Elway being our quarterback. So that looked a little bad, because if he was, maybe we'd be doing better. But what's more important is I added chapters about everything from political conversation to conversations about grief and suffering, and also added virtual interactions. So those are just 3 highlighted areas that I have added a whole bunch of information. And because conversation can become so conflicted, or, we have sides now. One of my favorite expressions now, JT, I put in the book, and I don't need to use it with you, but I have found myself using it, is I'll say to somebody, help me understand. So if you're from an opposing view, or if maybe you and I just disagree about the stock market, let's pretend you just think it's gonna be great, and I'm not so confident. Instead of saying, JT, you're wrong. I mean, why would you think that? Look at the history of this during this administration and previous to that. I don't need to tell you you're wrong. That's not going to be conducive to our relationship. And maybe you're not wrong. That's a whole nother thing I have to think about, which I rarely do. Instead, just help me understand why you believe this. Isn't that a handy expression?
I love that.
So even if you're from a different political point of view, or even religious or whatever, for me, I have learned to take a deep breath and just say, help me understand. And then try to, if it becomes offensive in some way, then I will end the conversation. But that's a whole different thing. So that's just an example. Another example is a lot of people, not just because of COVID, but in general, they go through so much suffering or loss or they're ill. And we act like we don't talk about it because we don't know what to say. I had a good friend, you know him actually, because he was the last time I was able to speak for Smart Meetings. He did too, and that was Scott Friedman. So 2 weeks ago, his sister died suddenly. She's younger than me. I make it a mission every few days to ring him on the phone. And if he doesn't answer, that means he's busy. If he does answer, I say to him, what's going on for you? Or how are you holding up? I don't really want to make that call, to tell you the truth, because I just feel so bad and I just don't know what to say. But it's really important to acknowledge even the rough things. And if people don't want to talk about it, guess what they get to say? This isn't a good space for me to be talking about it. Or I just need to, we're at this business meeting and I just don't want to go there. Maybe another time. Instead of saying, oh, let me know, JT, what I can do. Well, JT's not going to let me know what I can do. JT is overwhelmed. This is what you should say. JT, I'd like to either help you write sympathy cards, I'd like to bring food, or I'd like to just come clean your kitchen this week. Which would be better for you? And you can say none, get out of my hair. Or you can pick one of those options instead of me saying, what can I do? So that's just some examples of the new stuff. It may sound like big talk instead of small talk, but it is. It's the glue that holds us together, the connection that we cultivate by the conversations that we have with people, business, socially, and of course, romantically. And today, we are taping this on Valentine's Day. One of the most important things about, I think, Valentine's Day is to take care of ourselves. Look after ourselves, what we say to ourselves, how we put ourselves out there. We don't need to depend on other people for that, do we?
We can make small talk to ourselves that is positive and fun. Yeah.
That's the key. Exactly right.
So, Deborah, you have another one that's a favorite of Marin and I's. Instead of when you're at a cocktail party, instead of saying, what do? You have a wonderful line. Please share.
Wow. Thanks, JT. It works for me. Every time. The only time it doesn't work, what I'm about to share with your audience, is when you don't want to talk to me. If you don't want to talk to me, there's nothing I can do. You can't change people. You can't make them want to talk to you if they don't want to talk to you. I have an ex-husband. If I could have changed him, I would have changed him and then I would have kept him. But it doesn't work that way. My favorite way to get to know somebody is if you're at an event or an occasion or whatever, is to say, what keeps you busy outside of attending Smart Meetings events? That's what I would say to anybody at a Smart Meeting event. But if I meet you at a groundbreaking ceremony for a property, a hotel, or an award ceremony, or a charity, United Way, what keeps you busy outside of attending these dinners for United Way? Or what do you do for fun? If I know exactly what you do, so in JT's case, I do know what she does for work, and I do know she works. So I would say to her, either what keeps you busy outside of work, or what do you do for fun? It's the best way I know to try to connect with somebody and build a relationship without asking personal questions. JT, are you married? JT, do you have any kids? JT will tell me what she is willing to disclose if I ask what keeps you busy outside of work. Sometimes people talk about family things. Sometimes they talk about their vegetable garden or a trip or yoga or whatever it may be. And now you've given me something to talk about. Sometimes, JT, if I'm at an event where there are spouses, we often don't know what to say to a spouse. And so people say, well, what do you do? Well, you're labeling someone right off the bat. And maybe what they do is they're in transition. They were laid off. We've had a lot of layoffs recently. Maybe they stay at home with their kids. Maybe they're retired. Who knows? So I say to a spouse or partner, if I'm lucky enough to meet them, first I'll probably ask, how do you two know each other? So, because maybe it's a girlfriend or maybe it's a romantic partner. I don't know. So how do you two know each other? That's number one. Number two, I probably ask, how did you two meet? Because that's one of my favorite things to find out. Because sometimes they're great stories and sometimes, of course, they're boring as all get out. But that's a whole nother problem. But then I'll say to that spouse, what keeps you busy? I might say, what keeps you busy outside of being dragged to these kinds of events with your partner? Or I just will say, what's the day like for you? What keeps you busy? And then he, she, or they will tell me what they want me to know. So I just love that way of getting to know somebody instead of harping on immediately, what do you do?
And you have another great one that Marin and I both love, which is when you're seeing someone again how to get them to tell you what they want to tell you.
My favorite go-to, if I know you and I have time to chat, like today we chatted for a minute. These are business conversations that are really tight and when you're being interviewed. And so I wanted to chat, but I didn't, at 11 o'clock, I didn't know if there was time. There's somebody else on this call with us who's handling all the technical side of it. So I don't want to in any way impose on them. So I was pretty careful, but ordinarily I would put a picture frame around every business conversation and say to an acquaintance, which you are, because I don't get to talk to you regularly. We don't stay in touch regularly. JT, bring me up to date. What's new with work since the last time I saw you? Because if I say, how's work? Although with JT, you never know. She'd probably actually tell me, which is so wonderful about her. But so many people aren't certain that I'm genuine in my question. How's work? Or how's the project? Or how's life? So instead I say, catch me up on your life since the last time I saw you. Or bring me up to date on your family. I don't ask you, is your husband here? Because what if you left him? Oh no, my foot is in my mouth and it's killing me. So instead, with acquaintances, I always say, catch me up on work. Or what's like with you, JT, because you're always moving and not just you, but your organization. So, I mean, it's always changing and evolving. It's so easy to say to you, what's new with business since the last time I saw you? Or, catch me up. What's new with Smart Meetings since the last time we had a chance to talk? And I think it's just a great way to get a real answer out of people. I do the same thing, catch me up on your kids. I would say, bring me up to date on Quinn, what's new in his life, instead of saying, how's Quinn? Because if I say, how's Quinn, she's really nice. She'd say, great, right? But if I say, catch me up on Quinn, then I'm more likely to get a real answer. So that's how I like to interact with acquaintances.
Love that. So these are such great tips. Can everyone use these? Like what are baby steps? What's one thing someone could do to get closer to putting these into action in their lives?
Well, a baby step is what I did for myself originally because I was very introverted and not inclined to start conversations with new people. And I was waiting for you to start a conversation with me, which instead of turning into a task at a party or an occasion, because maybe we're not going to parties, I used to get excited to get an invitation, and I'd be, Saturday was there and I'd do the makeup and the outfit and then I'd just collapse on the couch with a glass of wine and go avoid the whole thing. I turned it into a task where I talked to 3 new people every week. So what I meant by that was it could be a neighbor outside of the mailbox. It could be in the grocery at a line. It could be at the library. It could be at a business function at the table of 8 to look to the person at my right and say, what other events do you go to benefit your business? If I'm at a Smart Meetings event, I would ask that question in a second. So that's one tip. The other tip I would say, and maybe leading back to what I just offered, is the best icebreaker that you can use with somebody that's new is free information. So if you are at an event or you're at an association meeting or you're in Colorado, your free information is you're in Colorado. Are you from Colorado? If they are, ask them where they grew up. If they're not, where'd they come from and what do they miss? What's your connection to this association? Oh, I'm a longtime member. Oh, tell me what your number one benefit is being in this association. So I'm asking, how did you get involved with United Way? Oh, I decided years ago our company had a rally and I really liked what they did. So free information is where you both are. What's the commonality about the occasion or location that you can use for an icebreaker? Will it work 100% of the time? No, because as I pointed out earlier, if somebody doesn't want to talk to me because I'm too tall or because I work for the wrong company, because here's my name tag. It has my name and it says that I'm a keynote speaker. Well, what if you don't want to meet keynote speakers? What if you want to meet people that are sales directors for hotel properties? Maybe you're one of those people that doesn't think outside the box and thinks, well, why would I talk to her? She seems friendly. She walked up to me, but she's a keynote speaker. She can't help me with room nights. So I'll just give her a one-word answer and move on. That would be silly of you because every conversation is an opportunity. I really believe that unless someone is a class A jerk or, offensive in some way. However, the best way to launch a conversation is to use free information. Have you been to Austin before? What's your favorite city to visit for any kind of event, whether you're representing your organization or for yourself? Why? Free information about the weather. Do you get this kind of weather where you live? When you have a beautiful day, what do you enjoy the most about it? You can also ask, free information is, tell me about your family, tell me about how you got into this line of work, things along those lines. But the key, JT, and I think I've answered this question way too long, is you must show a genuine interest. We can all tell when you're looking around the room. We can all tell when you're not really listening to what we're saying. We can tell by your body language. We can tell by your lack of eye contact. We can tell because you're not giving us verbal cues that you're following along. So please, if you're not interested in what I'm saying, if you're not interested in me, exit, go away, leave me alone, because we can all tell, And if you're boring me to tears, JT, that could never happen. But if you are, I'm going to leave you. I mean, unless I can't. But then I'm going to show you that I'm really interested and hang on to every word. I mean, there's a lot about small talk that fits the other side, and that is to be a great listener. And being a great listener is not just body language and eye contact, but it's also giving verbal cues. Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, good for you. And even today on this podcast, I get the visual treat of seeing you, but typically it's just verbal. I'm seeing you nod. And that is a very encouraging thing. When someone nods, I mean, unless you're in the throes of negotiation, you probably shouldn't nod unless you're agreeing with me. So
that's a whole other animal, yeah.
Don't nod to your spouse when he or she or they say, I want you to do more around the house. Don't nod. Don't nod. They'll think you agree with them. But she's nodding. And also, do you hear her laugh? Everyone hears her laugh. She's also given me verbal cues. Oh, tell me more, etc. When you give those verbal cues, that is a key to successful, not just small talk. Small talk is so demeaned and dismissed. This is about cultivating connections, business relationships in the case of smart meetings, but also social relationships. It's so important in the workplace, when we network, etc. Small talk is the appetizer for any relationship, period. It is. So instead of talking about talking, how about talking about when you give verbal cues, you're cultivating a relationship. You let people know you're really following along. People want to be with people like that. That's just how it is.
Yeah. And I think what you said is so true. Small talk still needs to be authentic, and it can be so powerful, and it's the building block to everything else we do.
I mean, JT, I'm curious, because you are so outgoing and warm. Do you think about conversation, or does it just come naturally? And I'm not schmoozing. I'm really asking you that question. Do you think about it? Or?
I authentically am hungry to hear about other people and their lives. Like, I just love meeting people and hearing about their lives. It makes my day.
And when you hear that enthusiasm and integrity in JT's voice, you know that that's pretty unique. Because in defense of people like me who don't have this gift JT has, because we get tired when we're with groups of people. It drains us. I mean, every introvert that's listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you're thinking, well, that's great for JT, but I could never do that. That's why I say, don't do it unless you are authentic. And when you're just completely out of energy, unless you can, take a break, walk away, go home early. Because if you don't come across as JT does in every single exchange where she is genuinely interested, people know that. And that is not the way we build relationships. Hey, all things being equal, people do business with their friends, right, JT? And all things not being so equal, people still do business with their friends. So if I get an offer that's the same or even close, who am I going to go with? Somebody I like, somebody that sincerely cares about me. So if we come to a blip, we know that it's going to be worked out because there's trust built in. That's why acting like a JT is so important. And when you can't anymore, and I get it, I go home early and I read books all by myself because I need a break. JT obviously does not need a break, but I need a break, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You have so many fabulous tips. Leave us with one thing that people can do tomorrow, today, to make a difference in their lives.
Okay, here's a tip that I think most of us are so lazy now with conversation, and because conversation has become so rhetorical, we just fall into sort of a conversational pattern, for instance, and we can so improve in this area. So when somebody says to me, how's your week? Because today's Tuesday, I go, oh, pretty good. Or how are the kids? Oh, great. Thanks for asking. How are yours? That's a typical conversation. How have you been? Oh, good. How about you? That's a typical conversation. When we want to connect with people, we need to give them something to work with, because it is exhausting to say to people, how are you doing? Fine. What's new? Nothing. What's going on with work? Same old, same old. That's exhausting. Give me a sentence in response. No more, just a sentence. So if you said to me, how's your week going? I would say, well, my week is fabulous. I just launched a new book and I'm sort of overwhelmed with that, but that's great. Or you say, how's it going, Deborah? Good. I just heard from my son that he's coming in for a visit. I don't even tell you where he lives. I don't tell you how old he is. I don't, whine about him that he never calls enough or brag about him that he does this. I don't, none of that. Now I have a son. Now you know he doesn't live here. How's it going, Deborah? Great. I'm really looking forward to the summer. We've already planned a vacation. I stopped there. Now, if you're interested in me, you'll talk with me about my vacation. If you're not interested, you'll go, oh, good for you. Wish I, had started planning vacation. So, Deborah, we need to talk about this line item and you go launch into business. I've given you something. You didn't use it. Okay. But at least I didn't just give you one-word answers. So everybody, that takes intention. When you walk into a meeting, be prepared. People are going to say to you, how's it going? How have you been? How's work? How's the project? Could you give them an answer that gives them some kind of factoid so they have something to talk about? The project's going well. Unfortunately, we just lost one of our vendors that we had relied on, and so now we're looking for someone new. That accomplishes two things. You've given me something to talk about with you, but number two, maybe I can be a resource to help you with a new vendor when that's networking.
That's smart. So many smart tips here, especially after COVID. We're all getting back to in person. We're a little bit rusty. We need to remember how to talk to each other. We're in the hospitality business. Let's be hospitable.
That's exactly right, JT.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing all this information with the Smart Meetings community. We look forward to seeing you in person in Virginia Beach. It's going to be fabulous in Virginia Beach.
I can't wait to see you, JT. Thanks for this.
Thank you so much for joining me, Deborah. This was a lot of fun. We'll talk again soon. Smart Meetings, What One Thing was produced by Bright Business Media. Visit smartmeetings.com to subscribe to your daily dose of inspiration.